Now, before we start, I'm going to say that each section will have its own facing camera scenes. So if you're wondering why my wardrobe has changed, you know why. And second of all, you might notice that VintageTech has got its own logo. I based it off of the Screen Life logo, specifically the one you might have seen from their bouncing die animations. I meant the bouncing die animation. And you might notice I've been updating the thumbnails to have this new. Well, I've been wanting to give VintageTech its own logo for quite some time. And I did since last year, so that's what I wanted to remind you. But let's get back to what we're talking about. You know, when I started the series back in 2020, it has become a really fun project to do, alongside Munfriends and my MMD stuff. And I think we should use this as an opportunity to update on 4 episodes. The DVD, Minidisc, PlayStation Portable, and of course, the V.Smile. Now, since each one has its own section, please, I will put a timestamp in the description. Anyway, let's get started. A bit of a heads up, this section's unscripted, so if you want some weird acting, you know why. Let's start with the first ever VintageTech episode to have the intro. The DVD. And it's not going to be that much, because, after all, I did 2 episodes in a row about DVDs! And then again, they weren't planned to be they were planned to be future episodes, but because I got so much done all the time, I figured it's best to release them early. You probably know what I'm talking about. CNET and portable DVD players. Which, the latter was actually the first episode of Season 2 to actually be worked on. Let's start with the Warner Brothers, and technically New Line Cinema, with these iconic cases. Now, last year I already did that short, so I'll just play it to give you the idea. If you've owned a Warner Brothers or New Line Cinema DVD from back in the day, you might recognize this case style. This is what's known as a snap case. Unlike a traditional keep case we all known and used, how a snap case opens is by first moving this plastic strip, then folding the cardboard flap that houses the front, and you're presented with the disc. The flap also doubles as a scene index and extras behind the artwork. These made Warner and New Line's DVDs stand out from the crowd. Eventually, by the mid-2000s, they would switch to standard keep cases. In fact, they even re-released DVDs in them too. Now, back in my day, I actually owned loads of snap cases, but I lost them, but at least I kept the discs. Later on, I did recollect some of them. And by some I meant 4, which I'll show you. The Great Santini, The American President, The Matrix, and Powerpuff Girls Twas the Fight Before Christmas. You might have already saw that one in episode 22 of VintageTech, which talked about episodes that debuted on DVD. Like I mentioned before in the episode, like I mentioned before in the short, and briefly in the episode, the way these open is that you actually move this plastic tab, and then you unfold this cardboard sleeve, and you're presented with the disc. And then we have the scene index being behind the artwork, and not some sort of paper sleeve, which is what you might have seen in those keep cases. Though in some cases, like The Matrix, they include more than just a scene index, but also ideas for special features that wouldn't fit on the back, of course. Yeah. These were cool, but by the mid-2000s, Warner Bros. Would switch to standard keep cases, and in fact, re-release some of them in set keep cases. Like Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders. At least some of these discs are basically plain, at least they are etched properly, unlike what you saw in the Great Santini, where they almost look like a mirror! And you can't see a tile during the right lighting. Why did Warner Bros. And New Line Cinema did these? That being said, it's not like Warner Bros. DVDs aren't really that perfect either.
as 6 from 2006-2008 are notorious for disc rot due to their poor quality. It was bad enough that Warner Bros. Decided to replace them. Still though, Warner Bros., at least you tried.
Yeah, it probably did not help that Warner Brothers has a history with mergers that tend to not end well. Arrow Time Warner, Warner Bros. Discovery, and now Netflix and Warner Brothers. And granted, I know Netflix has never even acquired Warner Bros. Yet, but only time will tell. Anyway, let's jump from that section to something that I completely forgot to mention in the original episode! Specifically if you own a portable DVD player back then.
So you have your portable DVD player, and you want to bring your DVDs with you. But most of the time you have to bring your cases along. Well, these got you covered. These are DVD booklets. Now, my family and I love these. I always pick these up, so that way we can store our DVDs when we go on road trips. In fact, it's probably the reason why I lost so many DVD cases in the first place. As you can see, they're often held in, but with a zipper. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I collect DVDs a lot, because I want one of these booklets. And believe it or not, this big booklet used to belong to my sister, but now it's mine. And, unless otherwise, all the ones, except for this one, were all made by Memorex, who also did DVD-R and DVD-RWs. Later they will be purchased by Imation. And I think that's gonna be his story. So check out Crazy Ken's video about the Game Spear, which is actually a boom box, or boom ball. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Now, oh, by the way, I actually got this one back in 2004. Notice that some of the DVDs have really seen better days, of course. So they may or may not work. Yes, this is the Powerpuff Girls movie. I got this from Blockbuster during their closeout sale when they were being closed. Property of Blockbuster Video. And this was from the 2000s, meaning that Warner Bros. Would use their iconic snap cases. What they did, they just took it off. They just took it off and put it in their sleeves! Yeah. Warner Bros. DVDs aren't really that better, so I guess it. Oh, on top of that, I remember when these digital copies by 20th Century Fox? Well, they actually come with a separate DVD that you must put in your computer, so that way they could download the movie onto your iPod Touch, iPhone, or computer. And I know this one works since it's scratched up. And oh yeah, I forgot. I did my own DVD-RW. And you can see it's got a lot of use. Oh, on topic DVDs, you might notice in the thumbnail for the episode, I used an actual DVD label maker to make the DVD scene in the thumbnail. Point out. Ah yes, Finding Nemo. Yeah, these discs do not work, so glad I got the second one. And this is the biggest one. And this small one usually mostly contains SpongeBob DVDs, with the occasional exception, those being a Mr. Men Show, Finding Nemo, Blu-ray. And I think that's it.
Yeah, only one of these is actually the best way to experience these. Though, like I mentioned before, as a kid, I always used portable DVD players as my form of entertainment, so I probably didn't want to use these. Wait a sec. LCD contains mercury. Dispose according to local, state, or federal laws. Okay, I think we're getting off topic here, so let's just jump to the next section. Alright. The Minidisc. Now, I should mention that the rest of the updates to the previous episodes were from episodes of Season 1 that were produced in 2022, which is the year where I produced the most amount of VintageTech episodes at 10. No surprise since I was actually finishing up Season 1. And don't get me started with that two-part DS episode. Anyway. Now, at the time when I did the original episode, I didn't know Sony still made recordable minidiscs, as they recently discontinued them last year. But then again, didn't even mention the original episode, so there are a few things I need to bring up. Let's start with an essential to any Minidisc Walkman out there. Let's start by checking this remote out for my Minidisc Walkman. Now, it took me a while to find the correct remote for said Walkman, but I finally found it in 2023. Having an inline remote for a Walkman is essential and more convenient than just getting the Walkman out of your pocket and pressing the buttons on the player. In fact, certain Walkmans actually required you the remote to use them, but let's not get into that.
Now, it's a good thing that this remote actually uses a standard 3.5mm audio jack, because I should mention some remotes feature uses a proprietary headpiece. Luckily, none of that remote's compatible with this Minidisc Walkman I have. Oh, anyway, let me show you how this thing actually works. And I'll be using this Messenger Dev Minidisc that actually arrived on the day before I actually shot this. I got this from Needle Juice Records. It was pre-ordered back in January and arrived 2 months later. Well, at least it's not limited on levels of lateness. Anyway, now this one uses a recordable minidisc instead of a compressor minidisc, hence the Sony logo. Now, for those who don't know, compressor minidiscs are constructed completely differently to recordable minidiscs, and as such, these things can in fact be rewritten, which I won't discuss. Alright. Now, funny thing, this is actually common thing done back in the day. And even today. That's known as manufacture on demand, where instead of a store keeping inventory of pressed discs, what they do is instead make the disc for you as you order it. Something like the Born Archive collection or something else. But we're getting off topic here. Alright, let's plug it in. Notice I put on hold. Well, what I want to show you is that the hold for these remotes are actually completely different from the other ones. Oh, there we go. Anyway. These will let you change the tracks. Moving this up will go to the next track, and down will go to the previous track. Let's do this again. Up. Down. Of course, we have the volume. I don't have my headphones on, so you can't hear it, but you get the idea. On that note, beats will come out of this Minidisc player when you use the remote, so keep that in mind. And then we have stop, which as my good stops, which it's more of a it's as similar to a pause than a true stop. but you get the idea. Now, the hold is more of a mechanical thing instead of this thing. Anyway, I should definitely listen to more of this album. Having this remote with my Minidisc Walkman could makes it a bit longer, and no surprise, most modern Bluetooth headphones feature a built-in remote functionality anyway. And now I realize why most of these remotes have these clips on them. Oh, a little side note, on a day after I shooted me demonstrating remotes, when I actually continued listening to the Messenger Death Minidisc, and it actually magically fixed this MD Walkman! Now, a common issue with these Minidisc players is that the rails will often not work, will often get stuck, leading to some read errors or delayed skipping. But they can fix themselves if you have a Minidisc that's long and normal and long enough. And that was surprising. After all, when I tested out the original episode, it was good. But after testing out with the Japanese Minidiscs, it had some delays. I did not know what the cause of it, but nonetheless, I'm glad this one's still working. On that note, this one is the main event. I want to show you, this is something really, really, really cool. This right here is a home Minidisc recorder, which is a cool thing to have. The one I have is the Onkyo MD105TX, which I imported from Japan back in January of 2025. And it's a good thing I did sooner rather than later due to what's going on as of now. It didn't come with a remote, so I got it separately. And thankfully, it was from a US seller, so I was very lucky. We'll get back to this remote in a moment. But for now, let's look at the controls and inputs of this home Minidisc player/recorder. Now, the way you load Minidiscs into one of these home recorders is like a VHS cassette or 3.5-inch floppy disk. More like the former, as the eject mechanism is soft touch, as well as all the buttons, which explain themselves, so I won't get into detail. But I should bring up that, and in fact, one of the reasons I got this player is that it supports MD-LP, meaning it has the SP, LP2, LP4, and mono recordings. In addition, this clicky dial is used to select the tracks on the Minidisc inserted. Pressing it will play the selected track if you inserted the Minidisc beforehand. The knob is also used for when you also add a Minidisc. The manual explains them all, so read that via archive.org if you want to know. Now, on the back, we have stereo RCA jacks for both input and output, as well as a digital out, and something called the RI remote cable. Here, things get more interesting. See that power input over there? Well, its primary purpose is for daisy-chaining a hi-fi setup in conjunction with an RI remote cable in Onkyo's case. This means that you can save yourself from using one of these power strips or surge protectors, and instead have your music center connected to the wall via one power port plugged into the wall. Onkyo recommends this setup as seen in 105TX manual. Of course, this also means that, when the bass unit is unplugged, the rest of the components won't play. This remote not only has the standard features on the front, but also more. For example, these buttons numbered 1 through 25 are only the greater than 25 button for Minidisc with more than 25 tracks. Now, if you used a DVD remote before, pressing one of the numbers will jump you to the track on the Minidisc. There is also a repeat for playing music on a loop, as well as A-Space and M-Scan. A-Space, which stands for auto space, allows you to play Minidisc with a silent interval of approximately 3 seconds. I don't know what M-Scan does, so I can't explain it. But I will explain the different play modes. Continue on random explain themselves. Memory is where things get interesting. When you press this button, you then press the number buttons to select the tracks to be played. They play in the order you select them, rather than from the lowest to the highest. And that Minidisc player has become my go-to way to listen to Minidisc music. Usually if I want to calm down or not. Now, you may be wondering, I didn't demonstrate this, but I actually decided to use my Sony voice recorder as a way to record music onto the recordable Minidiscs. Figured it was a bit more convenient than just having a computer without dealing with those notification sounds. Mainly because I completely forgot my voice recorder can actually double as an MP3 player. Oh, and one more thing. This is completely unrelated, but if you are wondering why there's rarely any background noise section, well, that's because I realized my Sony ZV-1F's multi-interface shoe is not electrical. It's just a cold shoe. I mean, if I want to use my ECMG1, I have to plug in the cable from said microphone to the unit to the camera. And this is why you can hear some background noises in the phasing camera scenes from previous episodes of Season 2. Welcome to the Season 2 premiere of VintageTech, the show we talk about old technology are popular, right now secure. And not this one as of late. And this also applies to sections 1 and 4, which, let's not get ahead of ourselves. And let's talk about another Sony product that uses an optical disc stored in a caddy. Alright, time for peak pre-smartphone portable media again with the PSP. Now, this one's an oddball. Now, since I made my original, I never got anything new for a thing that was supposed to be for this episode. But I do have a few more things to rescue. And what's also important, and as I now also have the elusive camera, which we will talk about first. Let's start with the camera. To use this on 1000, 2000, or 3000, you need to plug it into the top of the system, then screw it in firmly, which is easier said than done. There we go. It's screwed together. Alright. Now back then, when you want to use a camera, you had to use a separate UMD for that. But if you have a newer firmware, you can just go to the camera application on the cross media bar. Alright. Whoa! Did you see that? Yeah. Anyway, what we have here is that you can press the L button for review. I already took this one earlier. Or press the R button for finger like a shutter button. Now, there are actually different sounds you can actually play. You hit triangle button. These are effects like sketch, toy camera. Yeah, it looks so cheap. Distortion. How weird is it? Oh, wow. Ironic I'm using my own camera lens for that. Text. How does this thing work? Oh, it's just black and white. There's also just exposure, much like we see on my cameras. White balance. And there's image size. 640 by 480, 480 by 320, and 320 by 240. Go to settings. You can set to the shutter sound. Yeah. But we should go to movie mode. You can also do it by pressing it. Now, oh, forgot. Up and down, you hit zoom. Something like that. Oh, and that blinking right shown, that's actually where it knows the camera's on. It's the movie size. Now, if you use a standard memory stick, you can only pick one size. But I have a Memory Stick Pro Duo, which is what I'm using. And by the way, the one I'm using is a 2GB one, which I actually completely forgot I bought during the making of the original episode. For a reason I completely forgot. We'll discuss about it later. We got 480 by 272, which is widescreen. Now, it's actually in 720. It's actually in the AVI format and not in standard MP4 format. If you see my MMD animations, those were all converted from export as AVI, which I later convert to MP4 via Blender, but which well assign sound effects. That's why I call those things masters. Anyway, I think we're getting off topic here. Let's go demonstrate the photo mode. Oh, by the way, I just forgot to mention, look at this. This one has a swivel lens. Not something you might see in modern cameras, as most opt for more flip-up display. You can also move it up. And then also the microphone moves along with it. That's something I should point out. Now, aside from that small accidental, I need to take some real photos. That was first demonstration. And I need to figure out, and we need to do a good test. So, let's get this personalized Nendoroid out and see what we can do. Oh, and I didn't mention this. If you don't know who this girl is, this is actually my OC, Riley Sakura. Yes, I pronounce Sakura. I've seen people pronounce it Sakura, but I think Sakura is the definitive pronunciation. Alright, let me get her in position. And this is actually a personalized Nendoroid. I really want merch of my OC, aside from a phone case. Anyway, let me get the PSP out. Let's go to the camera. Alright. Let's go. Yep, that's a really good photo of her. Now, here is a montage of all the photos that I took with this PSP camera. Now, I took them in the highest resolution for this camera, which in this case is 640 by 480. Okay, so that's all photos I want to show you. As a bonus, here's a test of the video.
Whoa, oh my! Look at all these chickens!
I also forgot to mention that this camera also has a macro mode switch. It's actually a mechanical switch and not on Mac. Oh, nothing too fancy here. One thing I do need to warn is that whenever you take a photo with the shutter button, which is the R button in this case, you gotta make sure everything stays still. Otherwise, well, things become a bit blurry. In fact, you might recognize a few of some of those photos might be blurry. Huh. Anyway, next thing we're going to talk about is a certain PSP game. If you're thinking Wipeout Pure or Daxter, well, those were well documented. I'm talking about Namco Museum Battle Collection, the first game to use the PSP game sharing feature. I'm specifically
the Japanese version, where it's completely different.
Namco Museum Battle Collection was split into 2 volumes for its Japanese release, simply titled Namco Museum Volume 1 and Volume 2, a cute little nod to the original Namco Museum games on the PS1. Now, I won't discuss the games included on the separate volumes, as the majority of the games present are available for a North American release. However, Volume 2 is the one I need to discuss, as it has 3 games that are not available in the North American Battle Collection. 1 arcade title, Dragon Spirit, and 2 arrangement PSP titles, Pac-Man Arrangement Plus and Motos Arrangement.
Now, Dragon Series is on various other Namco arcade compilations, even ones that were released in the West, so we're not gonna talk about it. But we need to talk about the real stars of the Japanese Volume 2. The 2 quote-unquote exclusive arrangement titles. I say that because, well, you should really, this is one reason why you should stick with the international release only. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Let's start with Pac-Man Arrangement Plus, which is the most underwhelming of Japan exclusive Volume 2 titles. Like the Namco Battle Collection Pac-Man Arrangement, there are 6 worlds with 5 level seats. However, 2/5 of the game's levels are replaced with remix levels themed after Miss Pac-Man, Battle City, Mappy, Toy Pop, Dig Dug 2, and Tower Draga. The rest of the levels remain unchanged, including the bosses.
Yeah, Pac-Man Arrangement Plus is very underwhelming. They keep all this. It's the same game, just with 2/5 of the game being replaced. Yeah, so much for the plus in the title. But the second arrangement title is really, really cool.
Mo's Arrangement is very unique compared to the original Mo's and arcade arrangement modes. There are 5 worlds with 7 levels each, with the 7th level being, of course, the boss level. Like the original game, the objective is to knock the enemies off the platform before they knock you. Collect and set power-ups before the stage starts to give you an advantage, and hurry to finish before shooting stars destroy the ground below you. Unlike the original game, where your push power is adjusted up on how many you have, here, you can only set up to 5 power, which I assume was done to balance the game, as the jump power-up can now be adjusted to the same number, since you can only use 1 at a time in the original arcade game. At least in PS3 arrangement, the amount determines your air time. New to Mo's arrangement is a charge power-up, which, when activated and adjusted, allows for a push of a button to make your player charge up, then release for a dash attack that can stun enemies for a brief period, giving you an easier time knocking them down, or focusing more on the lesser enemies. Overall, this gives a fresh new take on the Mo's formula.
Yeah, Mo's Arrangement PSP is definitely the better arrangement title than Pac-Man Arrangement Plus. And that one sadly never received an international release. Or did it?
As it turns out, Mo's Arrangement on the PSP was later reskinned into Pac-Motos in Namco Museum Remix and Megamix for the Wii, and Pac-Man Museum Plus for 8th gen consoles, with the Xbox version shown here. It's the same game, just with a Pac-Man theme for the character, and the bosses being the ghost. It's not the first time a Japan-only title was reskinned into a Pac-Man title, as the Super Famicom release of Cosmo Gang the Puzzle was reskinned into Pac Attack for the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and Game Boy release in the West. Oh, and the CDI release too, but that's beside the point.
Are you surprised by it? Yeah! Mo's Arrangement was later turned into a Pac-Man game! In Namco Museum Remix and Megamix for the Wii and Pac-Man Arrangement Plus for 8th gen consoles, with the Xbox version shown as I mentioned before. Maybe that explains why Pac-Mo's lacks the word remix onto it, because it was a reskin. So, with Pac-Man Original as Underwhelming and Mo's Arrangement later reskinned, you should have sticked with the International Namco Museum Battle Collection. It's definitely the definitive version. And thankfully, if you are a Japanese player who wants to play your international release, the PSPs are region-free for the games and not the movies, so keep that in mind. The catch is that the confirm and cancel for the X and circle will be reversed. So Japanese players will get confused by the X button being confirmed and circle being cancel, and vice versa. Oh, on that note, the version I have is a Grace Hits re-release. As evident by, Product Trophies! Would you please through your fucking thing? Thank you! By the Bandai Namco Games logo at the time.
Because during the same year this game got released, Bandai and Namco will merge to become Bandai Namco, or Namco Bandai at the time. Yeah. And Namco's home tech division was later merged with Bandai. Merged. But here's the real star of this section. The multimedia capabilities. Now, originally, I was going to showcase how to play files off of a memory stick in the original episode, hence why I bought a 2GB Pro Duo with an adapter, but never did it because at first, I would need a USB adapter to add the files. Until I discovered you can connect the PSV to your computer and add files that way. Oops. Okay, we got our PSP up and running. Hang on. Now we're going over the game thing for now, and let's go to video. Now, unfortunately, for whatever reason, I couldn't even demonstrate the MP4 files, despite the best conversion efforts, without modification. So to make up for that, here's me using it with the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Now, we can see the audio options. None of them don't even have audio. Angle, redundant. We get subtitles. UMD volume, which you usually turn up. We got screen mode, which this one's in widescreen. But it's 4:3, it could be stretched. Kinda so. Display, which is self-explanatory. And then, you use the shoulder buttons to go next and previous, D-pad for fast forward, and rewind. Start to pause, and X for tabulated firmware. And you can actually do slow mode. A step. Yeah, it's funny seeing all the smear frame. And frame advance is a really fun thing. I remember doing this as a kid. Anyway, let's go back into the menu. So, anyway, let's demonstrate the music. Now, I already loaded one of my soundtracks in here, which is from Attack the Pex Robots, the alternate soundtrack. Now, if you play music on here, you hit triangle to go to control panel, which is similar to how you play a which is similar to how you done it when playing a UMD movie. We can go to next track, previous track. And unfortunately, you only have one track available. Or you can fast forward and fast reverse. You can actually do it just the D-pads and triggers. You can go to we have the visual player. We have this thing, which is similar to how those Winamps, remember those? Go to random. Yeah, kind of tired of music. Now it won't play when. Now it won't play when you put in your PSP in sleep mode. But will still play when you hold this button down. Now, on that note, they actually do sell a remote for the PSP 1000. And yeah, Sony wasn't kidding when they called this the Walkman of the future. Ironic when you consider that the iPhone will come out 2 years later, a few years later, and really beat the PSP. Now, for photos, now this is where things get interesting. I actually loaded this 924 by 1080 PNG of an MMD render I did back in 2025 called End of Bliss, which is inspired by Frutiger Arrow. If it could load at least. Yeah, loading from this Memory Stick Pro is a bit... Anyway. Let's see. You could show display. You can actually... You can actually hit square and or use the control stick to zoom in. And the same controller could use to zoom around or anything. Now, this is actually... Now, if you're wondering why it's blurry, that's because that's how you use the higher resolution than on what's on the PSP screen. But hey, at least it's something. Now we have the rotate, which is similar to how you do in Windows. But this is something really cool. You could actually set your photos on the PSP as a wallpaper. Yep. Now, I should really use that with my 32 megabyte memory stick duo. Now, keep in mind, this is all going to be temporarily, so let's go back, let's change back the theme. Let's set the classic. Now, those are all the basic things, assuming we want to use PS Portable Media Device. But it doesn't stop there. The memory stick is also in charge of not just save data, but also any games and or DLC downloaded. Granted, it's nothing new, as Nintendo's handheld, since the DSi also feature memory, allows usage of the SD card, and in the Switch and Switch 2's case, microSD and microSD Express respectively. But given the PSP being a lot more open, that is where things can become really interesting. You can basically add your emulations, add your emulators, or pirated ROMs onto here without worrying about buying the UMDs.
Having your games on your memory stick being installed by your computer is actually one of the reasons why so many people choose this system as their go-to emulation device, multimedia device, and gaming device. Oh, though I'm just gaming, something like that, but you get the idea. In fact, there are also homebrew PSP games that doesn't require any flashcards or modding. All you need to do is put them onto the memory stick via your computer and install it that way. Pretty genius. Although, that would explain why Sony went with proprietary memory cards instead of using their own standard memory stick format. And yes, I know this is the 32 megabyte one, but you get the idea. At least Sony finally learned their mistake with the PlayStation 5's SSDs, unlike Microsoft with those proprietary memory cards. Oh, on that note, with the PS5 game now having a price increase due to economical issues, which I will not discuss, I suggest picking up a PSP. In fact, there are actually PSP sold online that use the memory stick Pro Duo adapter that takes a micro SD card, and that comes preloaded with games. So you might get a bigger bang for your buck. Now, if I only wish I could actually read MP4s the proper way. You know, in the original episode, the PSP was a penultimate episode. And the last thing we're talking about in this episode is finishing up the Season 1 finale of VintageTech. Alright, saving the best for last, the VTech V.Smile. And it comes as no surprise, as it's VintageTech's more well-known episode. As it's not the most popular episode of Season 1, but also the most popular episode, period! Doubly so, as it's also the only one to have views in the thousands. And pretty much, funny enough, about 2 years after I did that video, Planklo did a video about the V.Smile, which I should watch again someday, and it covers a lot more details about the accessories, and I was able to do it, so it saves me a lot of money. However, one thing that he forgot to mention is that there is an actual third generation V.Smile that's a hybrid of the first and second gen. And with the addition of the V-Link port. So that's the thing I should point out. Anyway, we have a few more things to talk about. Starting with different Smartridge revisions.
Let's start with the cartridge revisions. Now, since there are no patching updates for the V.Smile, a costly solution is to re-release the pre-2007 and or 2008 games, which are updated to take advantage of the pen for a deluxe joystick, and the 2008 re-releases are compatible with the V-Link dongle. But, except for tough when buying the new old stock, they usually have the same art for the most part. But sometimes they do have different art.
Now I got 4 examples to talk about. The Pac-Man Tile, Doors Fix-It Adventure, Thompson Friends engines working together, and Cars Rev It Up in Rare Springs.
I should also point out that this section only applies to the purple Smartridges, as V.Smile Motion and V.Smile Pocket Smartridges, while they have different artwork, feature very different Smartridge designs just enough. However, I will get into the mystery that V.Smile Pocket Smartridges are purple Smartridges in the motion casing. Let's start with the Pac-Man title, Alphabet Park Adventure. When the V.Smile was first released in 2004, it came packaged with the first version of the title, featuring the odd designs for Jack, Ashley, and Grandpa, both on the cart and in-game. This one doesn't have a goodbye message. It's the first V.Smile, no surprise. And it's one of only 2 that I know which doesn't feature said message. The other was Scooby-Doo Funland Frenzy. But when the V.Smile was updated in 2007, an updated version of Alphabet Park Adventure was included, which, as you may expect, was compatible with both the pen from the deluxe joystick and the built-in microphone on the second revision V.Smile. But also, as seen on the cover, Jack and Ashley were updated to these chibi designs. Interestingly enough, these designs were later used in Zazu and Earth Adventure and the V.Smile Smart Keyboard Smartridge. Another example I know would be Dora the Explorer, Dora's Fix-It Adventure. On the original release, we see both Dora and Boots waving their arms saying hi, while an updated version will feature them along with Chico going on a stroll, while Swiper the Fox is seen on bottom right corner. That is a trend with Dora merch to feature that fox around the packaging. Another easy example would have to be Thomas and Friends, engines working together. On the original release from 2006, we see the titular train front and center, along with the whole old Hit Entertainment logo. The 2007 version has the art changed, along with the Cube Hit Entertainment logo. Finally, I'll speak this out quickly. The original 2006 Cars Rev It Up Rare Springs features the Buena Vista Games logo, while the 2008 one removes it, since Buena Vista Games at the time was rebranded as Disney Interactive Studios.
Now, one easy way to tell the difference if the purple Smartridge is an earlier version or a updated version, assuming you're looking at the license tiles, is by looking at the year. If it's from 2004, 2005, 2006, there's a chance it's going to be the original version. Stuff from 2007 to 2011 are the updated versions that are usually compatible with the deluxe joystick, especially ones after 2007, which makes use of this V-Link dongle. Anyway, next section, we're going to talk about something that I was mistakenly believed.
Remember when I said that the V.Smile Sire Pocket had improved screen? Well, that was when I was mistaken. It turns out that the V.Smile Pockets with D-pads are the ones with the TFT screen, including this revised 2007 revision, which I got in 2023. The ones with reversal controls have the older STN screen. That's how much of an idiot I was.
Okay, thought I might compare these 2 together. This is the updated D-pad version, and this is 2007 unit, which was updated for 2004. And the only thing they added is a microphone. Everything else, it's the same 2004 version. Well, obviously the one with the reversal controls is the thing called the joystick, and the one that doesn't is the one with the D-pad. This one has glass-colored, this one also has glass-colored buttons, while this one has solid colors. And this one is a bit heavier. Although I did put the batteries in this one compared to this one. But the thing that is completely different is screen. The one with the SCN screen has a little more screen space, whereas this one has less screen space.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, one thing I did bring up is that they do sell accessories for the pockets. One was a rechargeable battery pack that saves you the hassle of using these batteries. Hence these things on the pocket. They only work with the STNs as far as I know, because the TFT screens block that one out. Maybe that explains why the STN screens use different springs for connections on the negative terminals than the ones that use standard. And another one is what you already saw, is this carrying case, which was designed for the Cyber Pocket. In fact, this is what came with the Cyber Pocket that I bought. The one with this D-pad, this bizarre D-pad instead of the usual cross shape. That's something worth pointing out. Though, actually, one thing I need to bring up is that on the early V.Smiles, they will actually play on loop, minus the VTech jingle, of course, until you insert a Smartridge or turn it off. Whereas on the layer ones, feature a message. Yeah, you can tell it's a bit clear. And the message is, please insert a Smartridge. Alright. And the layer ones include the 3rd generation V.Smile, V.Smile Motion, not V-Motion, and the TFT version of the Pocket and Cyber Pocket. Now on that note, I think they took the motherboard from the Cyber Pocket TFT and put it in this one. And that explains why it actually had that message. Sorry if this sounds gibberish.
So this begs the question, why did VTech take out the microphone on the update 2007 version? Well, I do have a theory. The microphone was underutilized for a lot of V.Smile games, and majority of them are sing-alongs that can be done without the microphone. So I can guess why they removed it. So the other big question, why do you even use a standard TFT screen for the V.Smile Pocket's D-pads? Well, it's like a make of the fact that they cannot be hooked up to a television. At the very least, the screen is in fact clearer compared to the other one. Anyway, now, here is the thing that you may be wondering. Back in September, I got one of these PS2 to USB adapters. So I decided to plug in a V.Smile Smart Keyboard, and it didn't work. Shocker. I was sure the keyboard was actually easy because, well, keyboards. But no! So I tested with the joystick, and to my shock, VTech uses a proprietary controller board inside their joysticks and other accessories! Now, I thought it was easy considering they use standard PS2 to USB adapter. Now, I thought it was easy considering they use standard PS2 inputs compared to the other competitors that use unusual connectors. And some people are smart enough to even build adapters to allow them to be used on your PC.
Now, for those who don't get what I'm saying, if you want to use your original controllers on your PC for authenticity, namely with emulators, there are plenty of adapters that let you do that, like this Mayflash adapter that connects GameCube controllers to your PC. So discovering that the V.Smile joysticks and keyboards use a proprietary logic system surprised me. I thought it would be easy to connect to a PC with one of these adapters, but apparently not. If someone can make an adapter that can allow the weird V.Smile joysticks to work, especially the keyboard, it'll make my day.
And that's when I got my mind tinkering. If VTech was able to put proprietary inputs on proprietary controller boards in their joysticks, despite using their PS2 ports, then it'll take a lot of engineering to build a PS2 a V.Smile to USB adapter.
There is actually a reason why many of these adapter boxes are USB hub size, because they needed not only the controller ports, but also firmware to convert the proprietary inputs into standard X inputs.
Now, if you want to ask, yes, I know someone's able to convert V.Smile joystick to be a standard controller, but that requires disassembling the controller. If you want a true V.Smile to USB adapter, you need not only the PS2 ports, but also the controller board to convert the V.Smile proprietary inputs into standard X inputs, which is what these adapters actually do. But until then, we got one more thing to talk about. Our V.Smile Pocket games, brand games are literally purple V.Smile Smartridge games in the motion casings? Well, let's find out.
Okay, so you might remember in the original episode, I mentioned that VintageTech released V.Smile Pocket branded Smartridges. And I mentioned that they are basically V.Smile purple Smartridges in the casings of V.Smile motions. I only said that in theory because I never experienced one myself. Until now. This is Toy Story 3, one of the final original V.Smile games. And one of the few original brand V.Smile Pocket games. The others, as far as I know, are Cars 2 and Shrek Forever After. The rest of them are just re-releases. Use every different gameplay changes. And I still want to figure out a mystery. Is our V.Smile Pocket branded Smartridges just V.Smile purple Smartridges? Or in other words, V.Smile weighted Smartridges in the case of motion? And believe it or not, I decided I was going to get the V.Smile motion release. I actually got this first before I got the Pocket one. Yeah, and this wavy, and they also use this wavy style. It's with VTech brand on the front. Now, let's go hook up this V.Smile motion to test this mystery out.
Alright, I need to go set my TV to video 2. Which I plugged in, by the way. And then, let's turn on. This V.Smile still doesn't have the intro, so... Oh, there's a Disney logo. Pixar Animation Studios.
Toy Story 3. Tilt the controller to choose Learning Zone.
Yeah, you can tell that the same graphics also used in the Mobygames release.
Learning Adventure. Learning Zone. Options. Move the joystick to choose. Press Enter when you're finished. Music, nor unlimited.
Yeah, much like before.
Feeling options. Learning zone.
Let's try learn.
Build it picture stretch. Sandbox fun.
Let's try Sandbox Fun.
Game settings. Move the joystick to choose. Press enter when you're finished.
You know what? Let's try motion controls.
Help Rex dig in the sand to find the missing parts. Tilt the controller forward and backward to dig in the sand. Tilt the controller left and right to choose a card. Press the enter button. Good.
Yeah. Alright. Yeah. Alright. Let's do this minigame.
Great.
Yep. Card 3. Yep.
Good job.
I figured out this before, but you can tell that these graphics are also used on the Mogo, which I believe came out around the same time as this V.Smile version.
Here's your score. Amazing.
Yes. least they kept the goodbye messages. Oh. Let's remove the... Now let's put in the pocket one. The pocket branded one. Oh. Wait. Yeah, I completely forgot there's... There we go.
Tilt the controller to learn.
What the?
Build in a picture strip. Sandbox fun.
Oh! Mysteries! Wow!
Pictures.
What do we have here?
Sandbox fun option. Move the joystick to choose.
They're the same Smartridge all along?
Learning adventure quick play.
They're the same? Wow! Well, that solves that mystery! It turns out these V.Smile Pocket Smartridges are in fact V.Smile Motion Smartridges, just rebadged! Now, granted, Toy Story 3 was an easy example since, well, it was one of the last few remaining V.Smile tiles, and one of the only ones to never have a purple Smartridge. So, is Doug Specs a question? Why did VintageTech release V.Smile Pocket brand Smartridges in the first place? Well, I do have a theory. By 2010, VintageTech discontinued all the other V.Smile models except for the Motion and Pocket. So, they focused their priorities on those so they kept the Motion and Pocket alive while focusing on their other systems. The Mobygames, the Tab, and the V-Reader. All of them have a screen, by the way, and use game cartridges. And most people were buying the Pocket instead of the Motion, so VintageTech ended up releasing these Pocket branded Smartridges. But to save cost, they not only reused the same Smartridge shells, but also the same Smartridge ROMs! And just released them to figure out, just to convince people that the model they have should be the version that they get. Which probably didn't help, because they already mentioned that on the packaging that they already work on all the V-Smiles, except for the baby! Another theory is that VintageTech will just want to get rid of the V-Smile, so they can focus on the Mobygames, Tab, and V-Reader. So, they shifted their focus away from the V-Smile, only releasing Motion and Pocket related stuff. But I don't have other theories about it. But on the bright side, since this was a layer V-Smile release, when playing on the Pockets with the TFT screen, or should I say V-Smile Pocket the D-Pad, you won't see any choppiness. Yeah, did I mention that early V-Smile games were in fact also designed with the infamous SCN screen? Well, I guess that's it for this episode of VintageTech. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo 64. Once originally known as the Ultra 64.
All right, you made it to the end of the episode. Now, I'm going to let you guys on a bit of an intermission before we go to the end screen. I forgot to show this in the Minidisc section, but I want you guys to listen to how soothing this Messenger Death Minidisc is. I'm going to play a 2-minute sample of the first track. We need relaxing music in these trying times. Oh. All right. Enjoy a 2-minute sample. There we go. Now, apologies if my microphone is not in the correct position. Anyway, let's get started.